Look at the northern edge of the Indian subcontinent. These frozen peaks form the highest, most impenetrable wall of rock on the planet. Down in the valleys, snowmelt from those exact mountains feeds a vast network of rivers. For thousands of years, entire civilizations have anchored their lives, their cities, and their faith to these riverbanks. It feels eternal. But wind the clock back 200 million years, and this entire landscape disappears. The rivers vanish, the mountains flatten out, and the Indian landmass is entirely missing from the Asian continent. This map shows where it actually was. Sitting far down in the southern hemisphere, the Indian plate was locked tightly inside a massive supercontinent called Gondwana, wedged right between Madagascar, Antarctica, and Australia. To become the subcontinent we know today, this massive chunk of rock had to tear away from the South Pole, cross a 9,000-kilometer ocean alone, and physically smash its way into a completely different hemisphere. Here is how it survived that journey. 180 million years ago, deep beneath the Gondwana supercontinent, an ocean of liquid magma began pushing upward. When the pressure reached a breaking point, the crust fractured. That initial rupture shattered the land. A massive raft of rock containing India, Madagascar, and Australia snapped off and began slowly drifting north away from Africa and Antarctica. This chart illustrates the next major fracture. About 150 million years ago, the landmass tore apart again. Madagascar broke away from India, and an enormous volume of lava spilled through the newly formed rift between them. As that volcanic fissure cooled, layer after layer of dense basalt stacked up. It hardened into a towering ridge running straight down the entire western coast of the newly isolated Indian plate. Today, we know that volcanic scar as the Western Ghats. These thick, lush mountains are the direct physical remnants of that ancient separation. Because they sit right on the coastline, these mountains act as a massive physical barrier. When heavy, moisture-rich winds blow in from the Arabian Sea every summer, they hit the swall of rock, forcing the air up until it cools and erupts into the rainstorms that drive the modern Indian monsoon. That same violent split also warped the land geometry. The sheer geological force lifted India's western edge higher than the rest of the plate, creating a steady downward slope toward the east. That tilt is why almost all of southern India's major rivers flow eastward, emptying into the Bay of Bengal. The heavy rains of Kerala, the agricultural belts of Karnataka, the eastward flow of its water, they are all side effects of a 150 million-year-old volcanic divorce. By roughly 70 million years ago, the raft fractured one last time. Australia detached and charted its own course, leaving the Indian plate completely isolated in the middle of a vast ocean. We know they were once joined because the rock holds the receipt. If you examine the Eastern Ghats in modern India, their mineral structure and magnetic properties are a perfect identical match for the rock formations in Western Australia. They are identical twins, separated by thousands of miles of water. This graph charts tectonic speeds, highlighting a massive anomaly. Most landmasses creep along at 2 to 5 centimeters a year. But once freed from Gondwana, the Indian plate began to rocket forward, moving across the ocean at an astonishing 15 to 25 centimeters a year. That speed carried a severe cost. Around 60 million years ago, this racing plate dragged its western half directly over a thermal vent in the Earth's mantle, known as the reunion hotspot. The crust melted, and enough lava spilled out to bury 500,000 square kilometers in layers of liquid rock. As it cooled, it formed thick, stacked sheets of basalt, forging the vast, flat-topped plateaus of the Deccan Traps. The local biology didn't stand a chance. The toxic atmospheric gases from this immense eruption combined perfectly with an asteroid strike in modern-day Mexico. Together, they eradicated the dinosaurs, including unique species like the Rajasaurus that had evolved completely isolated on the Indian raft. The millions of people living in central India today are building their homes, farming their crops, and driving on highways that rest directly on top of one of the largest extinction-level volcanic events in Earth's history. After millions of years of open water, the journey abruptly ended. 50 million years ago, the speeding mass of the Indian plate slammed head-on into the immense, immovable rock of the Asian plate. Look at this cross-section of the impact zone. Because both plates were made of relatively low-density continental rock, neither one easily slid beneath the other. Instead, the crust simply buckled under the extreme pressure, folding and stacking vertically. That single, slow-motion crash birthed a 2,400-kilometer wall of jagged peaks, pushing right up into the atmosphere. The Himalayas had arrived. This sudden, extreme altitude immediately disrupted global weather patterns. As air currents hit the new peaks, they dumped immense amounts of snow, which compacted into some of the largest freshwater glaciers on Earth outside the poles. Every summer, those high-altitude glaciers release millions of gallons of meltwater. Gravity pulls that water downward, carving deep valleys through the rock until it fans out across the flat plains below. This process created the Ganges, the Indus, and the Brahmaputra. These river systems constantly deposit rich, fertile silt across the northern plains, providing the exact agricultural conditions needed for one of the world's most enduring civilizations to take root and thrive. So when you look out over the subcontinent today, you are standing on a geological survivor, a landmass that broke away from the bottom of the world and traveled 9,000 kilometers to create the highest peaks and most fertile river valleys in the world.